Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Joe Samaniego, along with Toby Lavich from the podium finish. Just like old times, the two of us here to recap a lot of racing. And Toby, what an exciting race weekend we had. Definitely, we're going to be starting off with, of course, MotoGP, the Le Mans 24 Hours, and NASCAR Cup Series in Sonoma. Big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Colin DeShaw, Mark Robin, and David for keeping us on the air. They invest in us each and every month. You too can invest in the Grid Network. Link in the video description. Also, buy me a coffee where you could buy a cup of coffee for any one of our particular on-air personalities right here on the Grid Network, whether that's for Kobe, who I know was very busy in the month of May. Of course, Joshua Birch Kobe. We saw him all 24 hours of. I can't do that no more. I'm no longer capable of being up all 24 hours. Julia, who was in, of course, Italy, and then covering World Superbike, and Ben over in Sonoma. But we'll start with that MotoGP action, Kobe. What a Italian Grand Prix, and I guess it's start of a Super Sunday, especially for motorsports fans in Italy.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of things for the Italian fans is small, but starting with the Italian Grand Prix at Mugello, we saw Pecco Bagnaia cruise to victory and extend his points lead. Ducati had the podium, and for everyone in Mugello, it was a big celebration. Factory Ducati, Italian rider, and the championship points leader. Could this be the start of another championship drive for Pecco Bagnaia?
Easily, I gotta say yes. I know in the past, myself, Joshua Birch, we talk about Pecco Bagnaia and the lack of consistency. He wins it or he crashes out. Wins it, crashes it out. Well, he got this win. Just about everyone picked him for pick a winner. I think that was easily going to be the number one choice because Ducati, they are just hard to beat when there's a racetrack with a long straightaway. This track, Mugello, that long stretch, no competition for anybody else. He just went out there, took the win. Jack Miller made it look interesting the first lap, first corner, but had nothing that KTM. The next few races, we know Pecco Bagnaia last year he had 2 DNFs, but then he got 4 wins in a row on his way to the championship. I think he's not going to make those DNF mistakes. I think he's going to be consistent and then coming to tracks where he could win. That Ducati is strong. This is the start of a championship march for him, for that Ducati team. Nea Bastianini, he's out of the championship, so I think really he's going to be a number 2 rider. Originally, I was concerned that with Nea Bastianini coming in the season, the big competition will be him versus Pecco. Now that he's missed quite a lot of the racing season due to injury, I think easily Ducati's going to say you're going to be the second rider. Pecco is priority because Pecco has the opportunity for the championship. And before I throw it to you, a couple comments in the chat room from Casey Campbell podcast. Hello, Joe and Kobe. And from Adam. Hi, Joe and Kobe. Enjoy being on Josh's com box with you, Joe, during the 24 hours of Le Mans. Highly encourage everyone check out the video. It's a lot of fun being with Adam and calling the 24 hours of Le Mans, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, Kobe, I think it's the championship. I don't want to say Pecco has one-handed championship just yet, but he's getting close.
Yeah, definitely. Pecco Bagnaia is riding really well right now, and he got me those 2 important pickle winner points this weekend. So I'm very happy about that. And I also agree with you. It's very clear that Bagnaia is definitely the number 1 rider on his team right now. And you mentioned all of the great things Pecco's been doing so far. And looking at the opposite of that, one rider is doing all the things that Pecco haven't been doing. And that's Marc Marquez, where it seems like the championship is way out of reach for him. He was running up front until he crashed out the last Grand Prix race he finished was in Malaysia, the second to last race in the 2022 season. He missed 3 races this year due to injury, and he's retired from all the other races he's participated in this year. Last race weekend in France, Marquez said he would rather not finish the race at all than to finish 10th. Joe, is that quote aging poorly, and does he need to focus on just simply finishing the race? It's really mind-boggling. I didn't even realize that until I was looking up the stats that Marc Marquez hasn't even finished the race since the second to last race of last year, and he's either at home injured or he's crashing out of these races, and that's not good at all.
Not good at all, and I would have to agree. That quote has aged poorly. If he was somebody like Pecco, as I mentioned, who DNF but comes back and wins, and then DNF again, more wins, hey, that more power to you. But Mark Marquez, he is not doing that. Just DNF, 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 and then three non-starts. This is a disastrous season. If this was any other rider without a championship, I'm talking about like riders like Miguel Oliveira, Brad Binder, Jack Miller, if they had this kind of a start, I think they would be sidelined for another rider that could be consistent. Because right now, Honda, they have to be at a point. It's like, okay, Mark Marquez, we know your mentality is go out there all out for the win or crash out trying, but you can't do this no more. We need those points, not just for you on the championship level, but for us as a team on the constructors. This is not helping us. Repsol, longtime partner, I think they'll be loyal enough, patient enough to stand by Mark Marquez and Honda. But if it was any other sponsor, they'll start to get fed up. We don't want this. We want to see our riders racing. Juan Mir wasn't even on the track. It just this has been a disastrous season for Honda. Ever since Mark Marquez got injured in 2020, there's just been nothing for them to really hang their head on. The one silver lining was Alex Rins, which, as Julia had mentioned yesterday, could potentially find his way in that Honda Repsol seat next year. He did get that win in Coda, a track where if Marc Marquez was there, we know he's a master at. This next race in Germany, I think, is going to be very important because we talk about how Marc Marquez is very good at the German racetrack over there. If he could pull off a podium finish, that would probably feel like a win for Honda at this point, considering how disastrous their season is. But I think they have to tell Marc Marquez, if you're going to finish third place. Don't make a move and not score points again. This is your opportunity for yourself and us, Honda Repsol, to start climbing back. But we need to only do it done if you finish the race.
To be honest, I think Mark Marquez just sitting the checker flag would be a win for him at this point because things, as I say, are not going well at all for him. And I'm actually starting to wonder: does Mark Marquez still have the same passion, the same fire burning for the sport? Because to make so many mistakes, retire from all these races, and then and unfortunately with the injuries added up, we have to start to wonder, as I've said previously, how much longer is Marc Marquez going to be able to last? How much longer is he going to be in MotoGP? And Joe, I think you brought up a really good point by saying if he was any other rider, he'd probably get sacked at some point in the future. And just because he's Marc Marquez and he's experienced so much success in MotoGP competition over the years, that doesn't mean that he's going to have a guaranteed spot on the grid. If this becomes a continuing theme throughout the rest of the year, if he gets injured again, continues to retire from all these races, not score any points at all, there's certainly going to be a lot of talk about his future. And even if he ends up leaving Honda at some point, there might not be a super good ride for him elsewhere. In today's day and age, is really what have you done for me lately? So yeah, all of the wins and past championships are great and all, but if you're not performing today, these teams won't hesitate to get rid of you. And in the future, if you see you're not going to have an opportunity to join another top team, that's something that shouldn't be surprised, especially with the poor performances lately. So we'll be hoping that Marc Marquez can turn around this really, really bad luck soon. And this was crash number 28 for Honda. Joan Mir didn't even race due to an injury. Yamaha had both riders finish in the points, but they weren't in serious contention. KTM appears to be the second best on Aprilia, isn't showing the same form compared to last year. Joe, we're 1/4 of the way through the 2023 MotoGP World Championship season. What's been the biggest surprise, both good and bad, in 2023?
The good surprises, I would say, is KTM. They are coming out faster. Brad Binder, Jack Miller, they both look good. Of course, Brad Binder using that strategy of getting points in the sprint races, that has shaken things up. I'll also say Jorge Martin. Big improvement. Last year, we anticipate he was going to be in contention for the wins often, but quite often we found him crashing out or just having a poor race. He has turned it around his last three races. When it comes to Yamaha, well, Honda in there too. Surprises for poor starts to this year. Yamaha, they just do not look good at all. Simon Patterson from motorsports.com. It sounds like Franco Morbidelli is starting to see the writing on the wall. He may not be with Yamaha next year. Aprilia. After last year, where Aprilia was Alicia Spargo contending for the championship with Fabio Quartararo, we thought this team was going to be strong in 2024. That is not the case. It just seems like they just had missed opportunities. Maverick Vinales, a couple good runs, but there has been nothing going on. If anything, I sort of feel this is more the competition failed to deliver a bike to really contend with Ducati because we knew last year Ducati, their bike was strong on the straightaways. Handling wasn't the greatest at strength, but that's where the Yamahas came in. That's where Aprilia came in. KTM, they had a good race. They could potentially contend. This year, it just seems like that has widened the difference between Ducati and everybody else because, again, we had an all Ducati podium and the sprint. Ducati taking the top 4 positions. Ducati is just looking really strong. Their factory bikes, their customer bikes. I just don't see really any challenge. I think one of the big things we're going to be seeing is when it comes to the rest of the MotoGP season, where are the riders going to stack up when it comes to tracks like Germany, where that is a track Marc Marquez is good at, more twisty, not a whole lot of long straights. It's going to be really interesting to see if Marc Marquez is in there, if he can put together a good, strong run. Can the Yamahas do anything? Aprilia, potentially, and then KTM. This next race in Germany could be a very important one, critical for all the teams, because this is their one opportunity to really shine against Ducati. If that doesn't happen, I think everyone's going to start thinking, okay, let's start thinking about 2024, which for MotoGP, that would be something else if we could see a Ducati rider get a championship this early or lay claims to a championship quite early in the season. I think that will really send a statement that this could be the start of a dynasty over there.
Yeah, that dynasty would definitely be a real big thing, and you certainly don't want to be thinking about 2024 at this point in the season because it'll show you that things aren't necessarily going as well. But my biggest surprise this season has been Fabio Quartararo. He hasn't been the same since his second half season collapse last season when Pecco Bagnaia took that title from him. We saw Fabio Quartararo had that great season in 2021, taking a title. 2022 it looked like he was going to do it. He had the big championship lead, and then the second half of the season he just completely collapsed with Pecco Bagnaia consistently winning races and having good points finishes. And then to start this season, Fabio Quartararo and the Yamaha hasn't looked the same at all. It seemed like he hasn't recovered from that second half season collapse of last year. And so far, as best, and so far, it seems like he really needs to get some things together to try to get further up in the championship standings.
Try to get further up in the championship standings. That's going to be a big goal. And of course, we're going to be following that right here on the Grid Network. Now, of course, this was the big race weekend for everyone that follows World Endurance Championship, as well as IMSA and any sports car. And really, Toby, this is the one race where we know people from around the world tune in for this race. The Le Mans 24 hours, the 100th anniversary of the 24 hours of Le Mans, have plenty of hype entering the centenary edition of the twice around the clock French Endurance Classic. 62 cars, prototype GTs, and a NASCAR Cup Series stock car. Most of the attention was on the hypercars class, entering through multiple manufacturers, going for the overall win. In the last 5 years, Toyota Gazoo Racing has been the king of Le Mans until today. Overnight, a dramatic development. The number 7 Toyota was involved in a race engine crash when Kamui Kobayashi behind the wheel. This was essentially a race where he looked strong, but then got hit. This left the number 8 Toyota as their only hope to keep the 5-year winning streak alive. And after a slow pit stop and suffering some damage in the final hours, this ended Toyota's chances of winning the race. They had to settle down for second place overall. Very dramatic finish. Overnight, it was something else. This meant for the first time since 1965, Ferrari has won the 24 Hours of Le Mans with of course, the 10th overall win for the Prancing Horse. And Kobe, what a moment seeing Alessandro Pierguini, James Collado, and Antonio Giovinazzi took the top step of the podium, followed by the number 8 Toyota. The Cadillac from Chip Ganassi Racing number 2. Yellow number 3 had an eventful race weekend. Overall, how big of a deal was it to see Ferrari to win overall at Le Mans after a long awaited return into the top category?
Oh, Joe, it was a big deal, and saying it's a big deal is an understatement. As we all know, on the Formula One side of things, everything has not been going Ferrari's way at all. It's been a whole lot of pain for Scuderia Ferrari's F1 program. And then when it was announced that Ferrari will return to top flight prototype racing, there was a ton of excitement behind this 499P hypercar project. Ferrari's done a great job developing this car during the early races we've had before Le Mans and entering this race. Ferrari shows they have the pace, but it seems like that they were just missing something. But in this race, it seems like Ferrari's figured a lot of things out after the BOP adjustment right before the race. It seemed like Toyota and Ferrari were right there, hand in hand, showing similar speed. And at the end of the day, it was a battle of Toyota and Ferrari, just like I expected. I'm glad the number 51 got the victory because it gave me another Pecco winner point. So I was up to 3 right there after Pecco got the sprint in the Grand Prix race in Mugello. Great drive from Alessandro Perguidi, James Collada, Antonio Giovinazzi to get this win for Ferrari. I'm sure the factory back in Italy is going to be very happy about this result, and I'm sure the Tifosi is probably still partying right now and haven't slept a wink at all. It was just a really great victory. I think this was a victory that all of Ferrari needed to heal the soul.
Heal the soul, and I was just sort of speechless because seeing that victory lap where somebody had handed the Ferrari flag, seeing that Ferrari car all dirty because of the rain under the podium, the 3 drivers, the Italian national anthem, and you could hear the crowd singing along with it. It just seems surreal. Something, of course, we know Ferrari fans would love to do at Monza. It was just something where I think this race was going to be remembered for quite some time. For the last handful of years, the top category was sort of lacking the action as Toyota just really ran away with this. This year, that story was very different. Plenty of great racing. Toyota and Ferrari seemed very close in performance. Despite Action Express Racing's lap 1 incident, I couldn't believe lap 1, seeing that accident, and then we went to a safety car right away. I just thought this could be something else, but we saw that. But then they went into the pit. It came back out. They were out of contention for the win, but they kept running. Both Ganassi Cadillacs, they ran strong and bounced back from their issues, including the number 3, the yellow Cadillac, spinning around when they have the heavy rain going on. What an adventure for them. 3rd and 4th overall. And then Porsche Penske Motorsport showing up speed until they ran into their issues. We also saw a strong performance from Peugeot and Kobe. We were shocked. We were like, none of us had predicted they'll be leading the race at this point. Glickenhaus, they were there too. A lot of action in the top class. Which performance was the biggest surprise for you in hypercar?
You said it, Joe. Definitely Peugeot. I was like, there was no way in the world I could have predicted at any point during this race that Peugeot would be leading the 24 hours of Le Mans. It sounds like a blast from the past, right? Especially during the days when Peugeot go out here and show a really great performance leading this race for quite a handful of years. And now Peugeot coming back with this car. It really seems like that this was the first big step that Peugeot has taken since they've come back to sports car racing, because with this hypercar, I'll be honest, it's been a major struggle for them in reliability, and just finishing the race would be a win for them. But for Peugeot to go out there, lead Le Mans, show a much greater pace, I think that Peugeot can be very happy with how well their cars did. I know they still ran into some issues, but to be running at the end to lead the race, show that there's some potential with this car. I think everyone has to be very, very pleased with that performance, and we'll see if Peugeot can continue building off of this momentum at Le Mans. Maybe we could see them at the top step of the podium at some point. And the 3 Porsche Penske cars, they look like they have some speed. All 3 of them ran into some problems along the way. I think they'll be back next year stronger than ever. Glickenhaus, to finish where they did up in the top 10 overall, both cars, that's a big win for that small hypercar team. And I know in the last couple of hours of the race, they ran into some issues at the exact same spot, I believe, on the track. I remember one of the cars got the tires in the grass, spun off course one way, and then the other Glickenhaus, same thing, same issue, tires off in the grass, but they spun in the other direction at the exact same corner. But luckily that didn't hurt them too bad, because they were still able to get both cars in the top 10 overall in Action Express racing. I think everything we've seen from them these last couple of weeks is due to their inexperience of being at Le Mans. Yeah, Action Express is a top runner in IMSA. Whenever they come to the Rolex 24, they're one of the top teams to beat. But this is their first time at Le Mans, and they've been really down the speed charts. If this was IMSA competition, Action Express would probably be at the front, but Le Mans, they were pretty much on the bottom half of the timesheets in the hypercar class. I know Pippo Durrani has been there before, Jack Aiken, Alexander Sims, but Action Express as a team, this was really new to them. And I'm sure if they continue to come back to Le Mans in the future, they'll only get better over time. And I'm sure if we see one of these WC regular teams like Toyota Gazoo Racing come run the Rolex 24 at Daytona, they might experience some struggles as well, like we've seen with Action Express. But all in all, I thought the race was really good in hypercar this year.
Very good race in a hypercar this year. For me, my surprise was the two Cadillacs being in the top five, third and fourth place. I don't know about you, Kobe. For me, it seems sometimes when people think about sports car racing, WEC, IMSA, they see WEC as like maybe they're a little bit of a step above, where IMSA, they have Daytona, Sebring, but then there's more full course cautions, different rules. I think it was really strong showing to see two IMSA drive based teams essentially up there in the top five. Do you get any sense, Kobe, like there is sort of that difference between the fan bases of the two, or do you think the hypercar is really starting to bring both sides together? And we saw some phenomenal racing today.
I said, well, the number 3 Cadillac is the 01 from IMSA. Yeah, so that's the full-time entry from the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But the number 2, that was a Daytona only entry. That's the 02 we saw at Daytona. But that's the full-time team. So Ganassi got one car in IMSA and one car in the World Endurance Championship. But to answer your question, I really think that we're starting to see sports car racing come together. It's pretty exciting when you watch the same car that can win the Rolex 24, Sebring, Watkins Glen, and Petit Le Mans overall, and be able to do the same thing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans as well, and vice versa. And I know a lot of people probably were looking at all the regulation stuff. IMSA is kind of more like hands-on aggressive racing, like you get shoved off course and all of that, and you come back on track, no harm, no foul. World Endurance Championship, that would be like more of a penalty. In a way, I kind of see it like, I guess, World Endurance Championship, I guess rules-wise, is more like Formula One, and then IMSA be more like IndyCar in a way where you can get away with a little more things. You can race a lot more aggressively and all of that. But I thought this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans race was really special with drivers and teams from IMSA going over there to race, and we saw a great performance from some of the IMSA drivers and teams as well.
Yeah, seeing the IMSA drivers going out there racing hard. I mean, I believe every team at some point, besides Action Express, had the lead at some point during the race. It just seemed really phenomenal. And with Chip Ganassi being with that one World Endurance car and then an IMSA car, I'm hoping that we're going to see where there's more of a united fan base, because we talked about how this car, the competition was just phenomenal this year. And a lot of people are excited about this, and I think it definitely lived up to the hype, hence hypercar. Now, of course, this was the final race for LMGTE AM before switching to LMGT3 next year. Now, one of the big things, of course, with the change, there was some good battles throughout the race as people really wanted to get out there and leave on top. But in the team that did that, the last Le Mans, Corvette race, and ended up taking the class with Nicky Katsberg, Nico Varone, and Ben Keaton. Earlier in the week, Corvette told Sports Car 365 the team won't be at Le Mans next year as a full factory-backed Corvette GT3. So, Kobe, I know this was pretty disappointing news for a lot of fans, especially the Corvette GT3. After many years of coming to Le Mans and winning it for the final time, how much will Le Mans miss the presence of Corvette racing?
Oh, people are gonna miss Corvette racing at Le Mans. This is what we kind of expected, but we got the confirmation this weekend that the Corvette racing as we know it right now is not going to be around in 2024. And as I always say, people that heard me say it on these shows before, that the business model will speak for itself. And it seems like in GT racing, there's a lot less factory backed efforts going there. It seems like they're shifting over to the prototypes with the IMSA GTPs and the Le Mans hypercars and the World Endurance Championship. That's where all of the factories are going to be spending most of their money nowadays. But in GT racing, is becoming more customer based, and that's exactly why the World Endurance Championship has decided to switch over to this LMGT3 platform and also open up the doors for the IMSA GTD Pro and GTD teams to potentially go over there to go over there next year. And once again, this would be in a way trying to get it more united, like with the prototypes that they're united now. You can take an IMSA prototype and go over to Le Mans. You can take a WC prototype, go over to IMSA. Same thing with LMP2, and I think we're gonna have a lot more in LMP2 coming up later in the week on Grid Tonight with the elimination of that class from the World Endurance Championship full time in 2024, and now next year there's going to be a chance to see a lot more GT3 cars potentially crossing over between both championships, with the GT category switching to the GT3 spec. And we know Corvette's going to have a GT3 car coming out next year. And I know they plan to race in the GTD Pro class in IMSA and GTD as well, and also return to Le Mans, but it won't be under the Corvette Racing Factory team that we've all grown to know over the last few decades. It's certainly going to be sad to see this team go away in its current form. I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, it's going to be really sad to see this team go away. I still remember the initial excitement when they came in sports car racing. Now to see them exiting out, it's going to be a missed presence, but definitely the memories, the excitement, and the history of it, something that Corvette could be really proud of. This year, I think there's a lot of teams and drivers out there that probably don't exactly want to remember this race, because we saw a lot of attrition in this year's race, a lot of full course cautions behind the safety cars for wrecks early in the race. Even on the slow zones, that's where we saw the number 7 Toyota, who was approaching the slow zone, got hit. Out of the 62 cars, only 40 finished, 22 retirements. Most of it wasn't from mechanical failures, but due to crashes on the track. And even includes a big one earlier where we saw that United Autosports LMP2 car crash really hard. Were you surprised by some of the aggressiveness shown by the drivers in this race?
Yeah, it was one of the more strangest Le Mans in recent memory. I don't know the last time I've seen so many cars like this retire from the race. Not, as you said, Joe, not from mechanical failures or reliability problems, but due to on track contact. It was just really crazy out there during the very first early stages of the race. As you remember, the lap one crash, Jack Aiken in the Action Express number 311 Cadillac LMDH. That just really kicked off, like cautions breed cautions, as we like to say. Lot of incidents on the track, and it just seemed like people thought it was a 24-minute sprint race and not a 24-hour race, because you can't win it early. You can't win in the first hour, second hour, third hour, and so on. So you really have to pace yourself and try to limit mistakes. But in this year's race, we saw a whole bunch of drivers making lots of mistakes. And based on my observations, it really seems like some of the, a lot of these incidents happened during the slow zones and all of that. It was almost like these drivers were trying to take advantage of the slow zones. But unfortunately, trying to get as much time as you can and all of that, it really bit some of them in the rear end, because I know sometimes depending on where the slow zone is, you can gain a whole bunch of time on the car ahead of you or lose a whole bunch of time, and people want to try to make up as much time as you can while the competitor in front of you is in a slow zone, want to try to gain that time and try not to be on the losing end of that equation. So I think the slow zone, trying to take advantage of the slow zones, had something to do with all of the aggression we saw, and also just regular impatience. And Casey Campbell says, you remember when you went to the Corvette Racing Shop in Wixom, Michigan, early in your career to interview Dan Binks? Yeah, Dan Binks, one of the more notable Corvette racing names over the years. And you saying others before Le Mans, you'll always remember that day. Yeah, a lot of people in sports car racing community love Dan Binks. And Adam Limmery says lots of incredible drivers have driven for Corvette racing over the years, like Ron Fellows, Nicky Katzberg, and then Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Dale Earnhardt Sr. in the Royal Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Yeah, that was a really special moment. Dale Sr. and Dale Jr. driving the Rolex 24 in 2001, only a short time before he was killed on the last lap of the 2001 Daytona 500. So yeah, that's one of the more memorable Corvette racing memories.
A lot of memories from Corvette. Definitely encourage everyone to chat room, share your favorite memories and questions you may have, especially of the 24 Hours of Le Mans and what you thought of the racing action this year. Now, looking at some of the other classes, number 34, Inter-Europol competition, Orica 07 Gibson won LMP2 with Fabio Schroeder, Albert Costa, and Jacob Schmakowski. Gutsy ever for sure, who continued to drive through the pain after the number 33 Corvette ran over his foot. The team believed it is broken. He powered through all 24 hours to get the win. LMP2 Pro Am, Algarve Pro Racing number 35, took top honors with Colin Brown, James Allen, and George Kurtz. And Allen swept the two 24 hours year with Le Mans and the Rolex 24 in Daytona. He was part of the exciting photo finish in January, a photo finish we will not forget for a long time. Amazing. 24 hours later, it came down to inches. Meanwhile, of course, the big story, especially that NASCAR fans were following, number 24 Next Gen Chevrolet CL1 Garage 56 entry. We saw that car complete all 24 hours. They finished 39th overall after being on pace to beat all the LMGTE AM cars. Unfortunately, a little bit of mechanical issue. They ran most of the race without issues until later on, but the Hendrick Motorsports got the stock car back on track to the checker flag at the Le Mans 24 hours. Great effort by Hendrick Motorsports, NASCAR, Goodyear, Jimmy Johnson, Mike Rockefeller, and Jenson Button to let the team shine on the world stage, including the pit crew. I heard that fans were just cheering as they were seeing this car go by in awe of seeing the pit crew with a floor jack, the only team using a floor jack. And the one thing that struck me afterwards was seeing the driver switches. They had to climb through the window to get in and out of the car where all the other cars had doors. Great effort by the Garage 56. Comment from Casey Campbell. There is nothing like sports car racing. That is so true. Of course, Wednesday, the Grid Endurance Performance Index will be updated after Grid tonight and following the results of the Le Mans 24 hours. Edward Hunter, Albert Costa looked in constant pain from his foot. Reminded me a bit of Carroll Shelby winning Le Mans despite suffering from dysentery in 1959. Where was that in the movie Ford versus Ferrari? That movie, I believe, focuses a lot further towards the 70s or the 60s. I haven't watched that movie in quite some time, but definitely encourage everyone to keep sharing their favorite memories or questions about Le Mans, MotoGP, or the newest one we're going to be talking about, the NASCAR Cup Series at Sonoma Raceway. The NASCAR Toyota Save Mart 250 saw two cautions which jumbled up the strategy in this year's race. Yesterday, I had mentioned how you would see primarily three basic strategies in this race. And one of the big things in this race, we saw 350 miles in the Toyota Save Mart 350. We saw Denny Hamlin take the lead early on. But one of the big things we saw, and I mentioned this, those cars in the top 5, top 6 position, they'll go out to get the stage points. Everyone else, they'll look at pitting right before when they hit that fuel window or try to go off cycle. The ones that did try to go off cycle, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain. What happened after their pit stop shortly? Caution came out because Zane Smith lost a tire. So that brought out the caution. They stayed out. Denny Hamlin went into the pits. Was never a factor. In fact, he crashed out, finishing dead last in this year's race. So that big advantage he had was overall gone. And it was really interesting because yesterday I brought up how would this race play out with no stage break cautions. And I predicted it'll be 1 or 2 cautions. That's what we saw because in the past years, we've seen the field get spread out compared to Watkins Glen, compared to Coda. Once they're spread out, it's really hard to pass. Towards the end, I was thinking that we'll see a third caution because we saw a lot of beating and banging cars spinning around. It will just take Eric Jones not being able to restart his car, if Ryan Blaney were unable to restart their car, we'll be talking about a third caution, a much more crazier race. But in Sonoma, this seems to be a track where you're going to expect the long runs, very few cautions. The least number of cautions in this race is 2, and that's what we had again today. Martin Truex Jr., he was the only car to go out there and pass Denny Hamlin on the track for the lead. He took control of the race and took his second win of the year with Kyle Busch in second place. Before that second caution, though, we saw Michael McDowell. He was in third place. That second caution came out. Everyone had to come in, make a pit stop. That's where the bad luck hit Michael McDowell's team. Right front lug nut. That got him his place, took him out of contention. He still managed to get up into the top 10 finish, but overall, another missed opportunity. This was just something yesterday I mentioned. That 34 team, Michael McDowell, he could put together some good races. He could potentially go out there and get a win. It just seems that team always seems to have one misstep here or there, and they're not a contender. AJ Allmendinger also wasn't much of a factor today in the race. So for McDowell, Allmendinger, and some of the other drivers are more reliant on the road courses or super speedway. What are some of the races that are going to be looking at potentially to get into playoffs? Because we only have 10 races left. Well, the first one, the Chicago street course race. That's going to be a huge opportunity for everyone. This is the first time we're doing that race. A street course, I feel that's something AJ Allmendinger is going to be very excited about. Michael McDowell has done a street course before in open wheels. They're hopeful that they could take care of that race. But of course, that race I anticipate could see a lot of caution, a lot of beating and banging, a pure street fight, NASCAR style. Atlanta, the mini super speedway, that's a great opportunity for everyone, but you got to be up towards the front and survive the cautions. We saw plenty of that. And then the Indianapolis road course, the Brickyard 400 is still not back yet. So they're doing the road course again. This is a great opportunity for those road course aces. AJ Allmendinger knows how to win there. That could be a great opportunity for him. Watkins Glen follows the Indianapolis road course. With Watkins Glen, you can anticipate, I think, some longer green flag runs, but it always seems there seems to be some significant size crashes throughout the day, especially if we're talking about entering the S's or after the carousel corner over towards the opposite end of the speedway. So it's going to be very interesting to see those 4 tracks plus the biggest wild card, the final one, Daytona. That's going to be the race where I think we can anticipate a lot of chaos as everyone's trying their last effort to get into the playoffs for the NASCAR Cup Series. So now we have a rare off weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series. 10 races remain in the regular season. Those are some of the 5 tracks where I feel if you're really good at the road courses or dependent on the super speedway like Stewart Haas Racing, Chase Briscoe, Eric Almirola, I think really Daytona, Atlanta are their best opportunities to get wins and into the playoffs. You've missed those 5 opportunities. The other tracks is going to be much harder because that's where you're going to expect Hendrick, Gibbs. I even say Trackhouse. They're going to be up towards the front. For Daniel Suarez, missing that shift earlier in the day, that really ruined his race. The defending winner of this race, just not a contender, not a factor. I think he's going to have a hard time. He really needs to have a good, solid performances throughout the rest of the 10 races to be a contender in the playoff. Now, with the 10 races, last year we had 16 winners. Of course, Kurt Busch withdrew from the playoffs due to his injury. I anticipate this year we're not going to have 16 race winners. I still think with the other 5 remaining races I didn't mention, you're going to be seeing Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. You're going to see the Gibbs drivers up towards the front, Denny Hamlin. Maybe you'll see a driver like Kevin Harvick take the win, but I think you're going to start seeing a lot more repeat winners. I don't anticipate we're going to see another 6 first-time winners of this year. So it's going to be very exciting to see what happens in the Cup Series season. And of course, big props to NASCAR for the Garage 56 entry at Le Mans, completing such a well job. And I think it really shows to everyone where NASCAR is advancing. And this is not just some Southern regional sport. I always get tired of people talking about, oh, this motorsport is greater than all and everything else is irrelevant. This year at the Le Mans 100, seeing that NASCAR celebrating 75 years, I think that was just really great. And seeing the fans' reaction, I think they were excited to see that as well. Comment in the chat room before we switch to the grid ranking. Kyle, hey, from Twitch. Kyle, thank you for tuning in to us. Definitely encourage you to follow us so you don't miss any of our programs, including Grid Encore, where we're going to recap all the racing in Sonoma with the Xfinity ARCA series, and then Kobe will be on the air with Joshua Birch, assuming he's 100% after being up all 24 hours of Le Mans, and Matt White for the Grid Endurance Performance Index, especially seeing how that shapes up. And thank you so much, Kyle, for following, and be sure to share any questions, opinions you have about motorsports. Kobe, talk about all the motorsports from around the world. It's time for the grid ranking.
Yeah, we're in week 11 of the grid ranking. Only MotoGP and the NASCAR Cup Series race this weekend. And as you mentioned, Joe, next weekend is a rare off weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series, since NASCAR is typically the only series that's a part of the grid ranking almost every single weekend this year. But this weekend, it was Pecco Bagnaia who's getting in the top 10 with his win, and Marco Bezzecchi falls to 13th. Jorge Martin is in the grid ranking for the first time in 2023. First three races, he had 2 DNFs and 1 fifth place finish. Last 3 races, fourth, second, and second. So it seems to be getting better for him. Is this the consistency he needs to get the wins and move up in the points? Thank you,
It
muted again.
is the consistency that we need to see from Jorge Martin to climb up the grid ranking and the MotoGP standards. We anticipated last year he was going to have a great season, very strong, be a contender for that second factory Ducati seat. Crash after crash, inconsistency, Enea Bastianini got that. Now Enea Bastianini completed his first race in the MotoGP after recovering from that injury. Martin, 2 second place finishes, climbing up the point standing and putting together some good runs. He could contend for wins again. I anticipate he won't exactly be a championship contender. Pecco Bagnaia might be too far ahead. But if he races smart, he could be second or third in the championship easily. He's shown the pace with that Pramac Ducati. I will not be surprised if he is second or third in the championship by season end. He just has to keep this consistency going because we've seen in MotoGP, Pecco is not the most consistent, but I think he's going to be really hard to beat. You have Brad Binder, the KTM's, Jack Miller. They have the speed, but they can't consistently beat up there in the podium. Martin has a great opportunity to get the podium finishes. He has a fast bike with Ducati. He just has the talent. He just has to put together a good race week in and week out to climb up the MotoGP stand and the grid ranking, which will be released later today on Twitter at Grid Ranking, as well as all our social medias. Type in Grid Network to follow. With the NASCAR race today, William Byron is the highest driver in the grid ranking at 12th right now with 12.60 behind Pascal Wehrlein, who is the highest of Formula E driver in 11th place with 12.88. Of course, Formula E, they're going to be coming over to Portland for their next race. We'll be there at the track. NASCAR Cup Series, they're off this next weekend. So next weekend we have MotoGP. They're going to be racing as well as Formula One. It's going to be a very exciting race weekend next weekend for us here on the Grid Network. And Kobe, 2023, we're halfway through the calendar year now. I think there's a lot of good things going on, and I think it's time for our one shiny moment.
Yeah, time for our Grid One Shining Moment. For all our viewers out there, please type in the chat below. What was your Grid One Shining Moment from this racing weekend? The one thing that you'll take away from this entire weekend that you'll remember the most. Yeah, we had a lot of great things going on from Mugello to Sonoma and Le Mans. Joe, what's your Grid One Shining Moment?
There's two. There's the easy one where I think I anticipate this will be your one shining moment. So I'm going to go a little bit more creative. I think for my Grid One shining moment, I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia getting the win in Italy in the Italian Grand Prix. Because here's the thing. We know we go on the air quite a bit and we talk about how Ferrari, the F1 team, is dropping the ball. We've seen how Ferrari, they're in World Endurance Championship racing, they're back in the hyperclass. Hasn't exactly been the strongest start. But this is something that to really be proud of. It's seeing how Pecco Bagnaia, the factory Ducati team, are really bringing the competition to a breaking point where they have to try to get some wins because this race weekend, in front of the home crowd, they delivered. Pole, get the sprint win, starting to pole again, get the Grand Prix win. Pecco Bagnaia had the craziest slow down laps where he got flagged over to join in a barbecue with fans after the race, eating a hot dog, and then went to the podium. The confidence in that is really high. And then, of course, with seeing what we saw at Le Mans, I think for the Italian motorsports fan, this is a weekend to remember. That is my shining moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a great weekend for the Italian fans. A weekend that they've probably dreamed of for a very long time now. Pecco Bagnaia, Ducati, Ferrari winning Le Mans. Really great things happening, and I'm sure that's not going to put a lot of pressure on Scuderia Ferrari this upcoming weekend at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. If Ferrari can win in Montreal too, that would be spectacular. But probably not going to be the case. We'll see how that goes and how the weekend shapes up in Canada. Yeah, my one shining moment definitely has to go to the NASCAR Garage 56 project. It went way better than a lot of people probably expected. That NASCAR stock car put on a great show. Hendrick Motorsports, very professional, and all of the things I'm hearing how people have received NASCAR over there. They've been received extremely well, and it seems like NASCAR has really gained a lot more respect, especially from the European side of the motorsports community. It's been really nice looking at all of the photos, hearing what people are saying, seeing the team members from the Ferrari hypercar team going over there and taking pictures of the car and all. The drivers also seem to be very impressed by the car, and for that car to run for almost the entire race without having any issues until the drive line ended up falling on them. It was just incredible because we think of a NASCAR stock car, running 4 hours at most, the Coca-Cola 600, the longest race in NASCAR, but to be able to run for that long, to be extremely reliable, to make it to the checkered flag in the 24 hours of Le Mans, that's something to really be proud of. And listening to the announcers talk about the car, they seem to be very impressed all by the professionalism behind this entire effort, because some of them were using like the Dukes of Hazzard type of reference and all of that, and that's really the perception, the stereotype that people have about this. But I think this weekend a lot more people will start viewing NASCAR and the type of racing we have over here in a more positive way. Really happy for everyone on the Garage 56 effort. They worked so hard on this, and to be able to see the finish, see the fans from all over the world get so excited about this car, it's been truly a dream come true for the whole NASCAR industry.
Dream weekend for the NASCAR industry. A couple of other folks during their one shine moment. Ferrari winning Le Mans. I felt that was going to be the easy one. Casey Campbell also shining moment. Ferrari. Edward Hunter. Iron Days Performance GTAM was my one shining moment. We'll be talking about them on Friday's Women in Motorsports program. They were very competitive. Just missed out on the podium, but they were even leading. I thought they could get it done. We got a question from Kyle over in Twitch. Do you think Lewis will get his 8th world championship, and he is rumored to go to Ferrari? I'll start with this question first, Kobe. If I was Lewis Hamilton, the lure of driving Ferrari and winning the race with Ferrari, especially the Italian Grand Prix, you'll go down as, a favorite of Tifosi. But the way that Ferrari F1 team is looking, I think it's a pass, especially after how Mercedes did in this Barcelona round. They're looking a lot better. I think Lewis would rather be somebody that I stayed with Mercedes my entire career with McLaren and Mercedes factory team. I'd rather just stay with them. What are your takes on Lewis and potentially Ferrari?
Well, if Lewis Hamilton went to Ferrari, I'd be absolutely shocked. Back when Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull were dominating all those years, did we actually think Sebastian Vettel would go to Ferrari? At the time, a lot of us probably thought no way Seb would ever leave Red Bull, but he did. I've seen stranger things happen, but I would actually be super surprised if Lewis Hamilton went to Ferrari. If Ferrari's not on the up, I probably would not even want to consider going to I would say go to Scuderia Ferrari, but after seeing what the Ferrari hypercar did, if Lewis Hamilton wants to go after the Triple Crown someday, I definitely take a Ferrari hypercar seat to try to go win the 24 hours of Le Mans. I think that would probably be a better bet than going to Scuderia Ferrari now in Formula One. But if Lewis was looking to leave Mercedes and go to another team, one team on the rise I think I would be interested in going to is Aston Martin, especially with them signing that deal to go with Honda in the future, because Red Bull's going to be going to Ford in 2026, which left Honda looking for a partner. And if Aston Martin can continue to improve as they've shown, and Honda continues to build a great motor that is currently helping Max Verstappen dominate, Aston Martin might become one of the championship favorites in the drivers and constructors standings in the next few years to come. So I think if I was Lewis Hamilton looking elsewhere, I'd rather be looking at Aston Martin right now if I'm going to move.
Aston Martin, that would be a smart move, especially with that Honda deal. They could potentially be a powerhouse. And I like your idea of doing the hypercar Ferrari, because if he does that, wins Le Mans, come to the Indy 500, you could get that Triple Crown, Lewis. I think that would be huge. That would be something I think he would check off. Something interesting, Kobe, I saw when it comes to the Alfa Romeo drivers, Sauber Alfa Romeo drivers, you had Kimi Räikkönen. He has won Monaco, and of course, the F1 world champion. You had Marcus Ericsson, Indy 500 winner, and Antonio Giovinazzi, now a Le Mans 24-hour overall winner, essentially the Triple Crown, completed by 3 different drivers from Sauber. That just leaves Charles Leclerc. You got to win Monaco. That's the one we keep talking about. But overall, very exciting race weekend around the world. And we encourage everyone, be sure to visit our website, gridranking.com, for the latest articles when it comes to NASCAR, F1, IndyCar, Formula E as well. Follow us on YouTube. Hit the bell icon when you subscribe so that way you don't miss any of our programs. And follow us on social media, especially for Pick a Winner. Pick a Winner, you could get a chance to get your name displayed on the board right here on the air each and every week. And if you're looking into entering motorsports journalism, you have a background in journalism, and you love motorsports, check out our LinkedIn page. Definitely great opportunities here at the Grid Network. We do this for fun. And to help us, you can invest in us through Patreon. Once we hit $500 a month, we'll be at the track more frequently. A big shout out for Ben for being out here to Portland last weekend, Sonoma this race weekend. We'll love to get more folks out on the track. Hit the link in the video description to join our Patreon. Come to show Mark, Robin, and David invest in us each and every month. You can also buy me a coffee. These fine folks has bought us 1 or multiple cups of coffee, and you can even give a coffee out to a specific person from the Grid Network, where it's our writers, the folks here on the air, or our social media team, thanking them for getting the Grid Network up and running. We so appreciate it. Before we go off the air, a couple of comments. Kyle, thanks for your time. Kyle, thank you for tuning in and following us. We hope to see you in more programs. Tuesday, Grid Encore will be on the air. Everyone, I think, is recovering from the 24 hours of Le Mans, and then Ben's traveling back from Sonoma. And Edward Hunter, can't wait to see Pick a Winner this week. I think it's still going to be very close. I haven't looked at it, but I think just about everyone picked Pecco Bagnaia. The Le Mans 24 hours, I think that's going to be interesting. You got that one, Kobe, correct?
Yeah. I got both Pecco Bagnaia for the sprint in the main Grand Prix event, and then also correctly picked the number 51 Ferrari, but I didn't get the NASCAR one correct.
The NASCAR one, I got to review that, but yes, definitely we encourage everyone, and especially if you're on TikTok, right here on YouTube, in the YouTube Shorts, we'll post the Pick a Winner. We thank everyone for tuning in today's program. For Kobe Lambeth at the Podium Finish, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.